got Kyle Loomis joining us from E2C Network. Kyle, what's going on today?
Not too much. Just trying to get through the summer so we can start having some legitimate college football talk to mull about around the water cooler.
Well, hopefully we will not be having illegitimate college football talk for the next few minutes here. Let's talk
Yeah.
some recruiting. Let's
Yes,
start
sir.
there because people are so super excited to see Cam Coleman this year on the field, and of course that wide receiver class was outstanding and will need to be to supplement, of course, the passing game and see something. So, how does this year's haul at this point compare? Is Auburn off to a good start?
Well, Hugh Freeze, when he was brought in, one of the things that he used to sell himself, obviously to the decision makers, but to the Auburn people, was his ability to recruit from the past. And that has carried over in very good measure here at Auburn so far. I think what he was able to pull together in a very short time in that initial class, kind of, if you want to call it a half class when he got here at the end of the Brian Harsin era, his first full one last year was pretty good as well. But we're talking about the 2025 class already being in the top 10, and some would argue really making a case to be in the top 5 at this point. Now, if you go to different rankings sites, you're going to find them anywhere from like 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in that vicinity. A top 10 class this early in the 2025 class. So I would say that recruiting is going very, very well on paper. Obviously, we always talk about the stars they come in with don't matter as much as the stars that they leave with. But on paper, Hugh Freeze is doing exactly what we thought he would do, what he sold himself on as a coach, what he brings to the table, what he would do for Auburn. The cupboard was not bare at Auburn, but it is being filled up very, very strongly by Hugh Freeze in only his second full year of having a full recruiting cycle to work through and work his magic. So we're pretty pleased right now with what's going on.
Are there any particular targets out there that will make this an extremely successful class if they lean the Auburn way and finally make that decision, as opposed to, there's always that collection of players that are near the top at their positions that have your particular team, Auburn in this case, in that group of 4 or 5 that you're holding out for. So who would be those guys?
I've got to say the word that every Auburn fan right now was thinking as you were asking that question. And his name is Julian Lewis, or Juju as his nickname. He's a current Southern Cal commit. He just got done with a visit to Auburn. It was a very big recruiting weekend for Auburn. Very successful, I think, getting the commitment of Eric Winters, the defensive back that has been long thought he would commit to Auburn, finally did. But when you talk about who's out there, who are Auburn fans focused on, it's quarterback, USC commit, Julian Lewis. I get asked within 5 minutes anytime I go live, is Juju going to commit? Obviously, the answer is I don't know. Obviously, if you take him off face value and what he's saying after his visits, when he's asked questions, when he's doing an interview, it all sounds promising, right? But he's still committed to Southern Cal. Obviously, you would hope that this weekend was maybe that final push that he needed to make that decision to flip. The question also is out there, do you need another quarterback? Because you just brought in Walker White in this last class. And does he need to bring that extra piece into the quarterback room right now? I would say if you always have the opportunity to bring in a talent that seems like Juju is, you definitely take that opportunity and bring him in to create competition, because competition makes everybody better. But if you want to talk about names that people are focused on right now in the Auburn space, Julian Lewis is the only one that you will hear people asking about, wondering about, lamenting about. Will he commit? Only time will tell.
Kyle Loomis, E2C Network. So the unique situation there on Kyle's YouTube channel is that it is Auburn through and through. Everything concerning Auburn athletics, the community, the vibe, the environment, the history, the tradition, the brand, everything involving Auburn. Take the deep dive. Head on over there to E2C Network. Kyle, when it comes to the passing game, we won't pile on too much. We're turning over a new leaf, looking at 2024. Well, let's take the positive end of this offensive situation. Jarquez Hunter is back. The offensive line was a good run blocking line. I can't really comment to the pass protection, even though I watch the games. I don't recall what the situation was there, but just highlighting that if you can run the ball in the SEC, then that is a great foundational piece. And there are a lot of publications across the nation that see Auburn taking a substantial climb to 8 or 9 wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Auburn to be at 9 wins. I'm kind of sitting somewhere in the 8-4 record range right now. It's not an official prediction from me, but that's kind of what it feels like. In fact, that's the operating standard I usually come in with every year as a bare minimum for Auburn. As a program, historically, they should be capable at minimum of 8-4. Obviously, of late, that's not gone that way. Those are long discussions that we've already discussed thousands of times here on your show before why that is. But 9 wins isn't out of the realm of possibility. Now, that's a difficult task, and some of that is going to be dictated by what you just discussed here. What is the offense going to look like? What is the passing game going to look like? Auburn's got some great running backs. Jarquez Hunter, I think if he is on a more prolific offensive team, is one of the best running backs in the conference. And I think he is one of the best running backs in the conference, but he would be considered by most because he'd be getting the attention he deserves. The running attack has suffered because of the passing attack or lack thereof. And that wasn't all that exciting last year. Some of that's on the quarterback situation, but a lot of that's, as you and I have discussed, not trying to pile on too much, by a lot of other factors. Wide receivers dropping the balls that literally hit them in the hands, and an offensive line that, when it comes to pass blocking, sometimes looks like we're at a bullfight and a matador is saying "Ole," running for the life. And I've continued to give you props on my show every time I get for opening my eyes to Peyton Thorne's mobility. And boy, did he have to show it a lot last year. There was one game he basically single-handedly won it by using his legs. So will Auburn take a big step forward this year? My gut says yes. Now, I guess the question is, what do you consider, you, the viewer, anybody asking that question? What's a big step forward? Obviously, a winning season would be great, above 500 record. But I think 8-4 is definitely an improvement that should be satisfactory to everybody. But Auburn definitely is capable of doing much more. Just a lot of it depends on what happens with our offensive line and the offense in general.
Two-part final question, Kyle. Why is Cam Coleman so good? Or maybe a better description of the question would not be why, but what are his attributes that just make people just gush over this guy? And number two, in addition to Cam Coleman, who do you expect as a newcomer, whether that's a true freshman or a transfer portal addition, to be that list of guys that should make an impact?
I think what people gush over is obviously the talk around him coming out of high school. It's hard not to ignore when you get 5 stars and 5-star plus ratings from some sites. You look at his measurables, he's 6'3", approximately 180 pounds. When he's out there on the field, he looks every bit of it. I think that in and of itself, we haven't had a just dominant, very sizably measurable wide receiver in a while. We've had some guys with size, but they've not risen to the occasion for whatever reason that might be. This guy has had an opportunity to be out there at A-Day, and it is a spring game, I grant you. But as I continue to try to wave the banner of caution, just to not overhype these kids until we give them a chance to get their feet wet, he doesn't help me in waving that banner. He continues to show that he just knows how to high point a ball, how to track it. If it's underthrown, he can come back and get it. If it's overthrown, he can go out and get it. You'll find a highlight from the A-Day game, actually a couple of them with him. One where he had to make a diving catch. I believe the ball was thrown by backup Hank Brown, if I'm not mistaken. But you could argue if it was overthrown or just placed perfectly because it's Cam Coleman. I think that's what it is what you've got is a situation where Auburn fans don't feel comfortable about hardly any of their quarterbacks holistically. But when you've got a guy like Cam Coleman who can go make plays, even on maybe overthrown, underthrown balls, that's really exciting to Auburn fans. So he continues to build his legend. Most people expect him to start. I would say that's a fair assessment based on what we've seen right now, given the fact that nobody else has really taken that. when you want to look at maybe freshmen also to keep an eye on, you obviously look at the rest of that wide receiver class. Perry Thompson just got here. A lot of people have asked me lately, is he going to start? It's not that I don't think he's not capable of starting. I just wonder, he's got a little bit of less time than, say, a Cam Coleman does, than a Bryce Kane, also a wide receiver in that class that's been here as part of A-Day. Same thing would go for Malcolm Simmons, having less time just getting here as well. But Perry Thompson's one definitely to watch in this class that I think would be very exciting for Auburn fans. A lot of questions about defensive line and who's going to contribute the most there. Morris Williams might be one of those to keep an eye on, just to see if he's able to crack any playing time across the defensive front. But I have a stinking suspicion that defensive front is going to be a little bit more formidable than people think it will be. And not a lot of big names there outside of Keldrick Falk, who will be in year 2. But if I'm looking for somewhere to watch in terms of freshmen, I'm looking at the wide receiver group. I'm looking probably at the defensive front to see if any of those new names can break out and make a name for themselves this year.
Kyle Loomis, E2C Network. Track everything Auburn right there with Kyle and everyone there at the E2C Network. Kyle, appreciate you stopping by as always.
Thanks for having me, War Eagle.